So my wife has spoken about this topic before. I have not really in a public forum. So I thought, I don't really know if I have a story. Do I have a story? But I think that everybody has a story. I started praying about, all right, Lord, what would you have me share? How would you have me come up and talk about what you've done in my life and how that might impact someone else? And I kind of got the sense of a ripple effect. I think we've all seen that, how you can drop a pebble into a pond and it ripples out. But you add a second stone, or a third stone, or a fourth stone, and now all of a sudden those ripples are intersecting, they're crisscrossing. And if you stand far enough back, and the stone or rock is heavy enough, it's actually going to make some waves. So I thought, all right, how about if I just share my ripple story with you as I talk about some of the stones that have been in my life pond. And I thought I had to start with myself. So I cast myself as the first stone. See, that was the first applause line. I didn't want it. All right. No, that was like a nerdy religion. Okay. So I've done radio out of college. My family moved here in 1998. I did the Way FM morning show for 3 years, Doug and Connie, Doug and Carla. And then I went over to the Fish, the morning show there since first signing on with Doug and Kim, and most recently with Jackie Velasquez. I've since been transitioned to the midday show, so you can catch me from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on 94 FM The Fish. Also, 29 years as a mobile DJ, so Victoria alluded to that. I hope people get their groove on. Yeah. Especially Victoria, our 70s disco queen, so we had fun. We had fun. I was born in California, and I went to Christian school from 3rd grade through the 10th grade. I accepted Christ in a chapel service in 3rd grade at Redwood Christian School. I was raised by my mom as a single mom until 11, and then she married my stepdad. My big growing up year was my senior year of high school. I kind of call that my dog year, like how dogs age 7 to 1. I thought I really grew up to be in another country, to learn another language. I was powerful. 1984-85 was my senior year, class of 85. Yeah. Nostalgic. When I came back, I had acquired a love of Germany, a command of the language. I had achieved a lot of personal growth, and I came back with a German girlfriend, or at least she was in Germany at the time. She's the second stone in my pond. Her name is Susanna, or Suzanne. Susanna is how you would say it off Deutsch. So Susanna and I were boyfriend-girlfriend over the last 4 or 5 months of my exchange year. And then I came back and started going to school, and she came out and visited, and she went back to Germany, and then she came out and visited again. She left her language, she left her family, she left her country to visit this American boyfriend. Suzanne and I lost our innocence together in San Jose, California, and several months later, lost another form of innocence, also in San Jose, California, and at the office of Planned Parenthood. I remember that day as Suzanne was led into the room for the procedure. She was nervous, scared. I held her hand. I really don't remember agonizing over the decision much. Abortion wasn't a big topic for me growing up. At this point in my life, although I was a Christian, I was kind of doing my own thing. I was on the wide path. I hadn't been on the narrow in a while. Out of selfishness, we didn't feel a baby would fit in with our lives at that time, and we knew we had a choice. It's a choice I now regret. I don't remember anyone outside the clinic talking with us, or anybody out there, looking to interact with us. Who knows what would have happened? Maybe they would have talked us out of it. I would, as a side note, say, if you do that or you're involved with that, keep going. If you're going to speak God's love and His truth to people outside abortion clinics, do not grow weary in doing good, because it does a lot of good. But on that day, there was nobody there. It was just the two of us. We went into the office. We went into the procedure. And I remember looking at the machine and then hearing the whir of the suction. And then I saw these tubes fill red and white and pieces and and chunks and red and more red. And then the suction stopped. And it was over. It was declared a success. We left the office. As far as I can remember, we didn't talk about that then. In fact, Susanna and I really hadn't talked about that until this week, some 30 years later, when I wanted to let her know what I was doing and planning on sharing the story. I wanted to give her approval and also help her refresh my memory about some things, hear about it from her perspective. She told me that I didn't pressure her into doing this. This was a decision that we had made on our own. We had made it jointly. I believe it's a decision that she regrets, because now at the age of 51, Susanna has never had kids. So the one question I had to ask her was, did that procedure, did that abortion affect your ability to conceive? She said no. There were some other things. That's her story to tell. But I thanked her for her willingness to share. I told her I was sorry. We reminisced about the old days, talked about my family's upcoming trip to Germany. Thankfully, we've been on good terms. Stone number 3 in my life pond is my mom. Her name is Michelle. She's a blue state, proud Californian. In fact, when we moved to Tennessee, she thought we drank the Kool-Aid. We realized that there were some things that we weren't going to talk about in conversation, and politics was probably one of them. During my time after Germany, and the 5 years that Suzanne and I were married, I didn't always tell everything to her. I mean, I'm an adult, right? I don't think that we as adults necessarily tell our parents everything, right? With the one exception of my son. Eric, you have to tell us everything. Because Mom and I think we want to know that, so keep that in perspective. So here's a teenage boy's lesson. I didn't think this was a big deal at the time, but I realize now that it kind of is, and I've already apologized. When Suzanne and I decided to get married at the young age of 19, it was kind of on a whim. This was her second trip back to the States. Her tourist visa was running out. I was like, hey, I love you, and you should just stay here. So let's get married. So at the time, I was doing traffic reporting, split shift. So you work morning drive, tell about the slow and go in the San Francisco Bay Area, you have middays off, and then you go back for the afternoon commute. Let's go down to the German restaurant that I was working at after the courthouse, and we'll get hitched. Yeah, can you see where this is going? As we're talking about my mom. So later that day, I called her up. Hey, Mom, guess what Susanna and I did today? We got married. Mom? Yeah, she hung up on me and didn't talk to me for several days. But I get it now. I totally blew that one. Anyway, back to abortion and my mom. Well, I guess I never told her about the decision that Susanna and I had made, so how did she find out? Well, she found out from my 4th stone, which is my beautiful wife, Cheryl. Cheryl has abortion as a part of her testimony. Perhaps you've heard her share. If not, her story is available in the book, The Scarlet Cord of Hope. CherylGriffin.com. Copies available tonight. Anyway, my mom read the book. I wrote a chapter in it. She found out about the abortion. All right. So what's she saying? Well, she's a blue stater, right? So of course she said, son, they got rid of a couple of cells in your wife's body. It's no big deal. They just kind of cut out some tissue that really didn't mean much of anything. That's what she said, right? No. She said, so I missed out on a grandchild? I thought that interesting, coming from a blue stater, from someone who is pro-choice, but then again, that choice is framed quite differently when it hits so close to home, isn't it? On to my 4th stone. As I mentioned, that is a beautiful diamond in my life, Cheryl. 20 years we've been married. When Cheryl and I met, we were both divorced. She had a cute little 5-year-old daughter, Lauren, who I would later play Barbies with. I was working at the time on a country radio station in San Jose, California, 95.3 KRTY. San Jose is 12 in a row, hot country. It was Gary Scott Thomas and Jungle Doug, and I was Jungle Doug. I don't know if you remember this, but there was a long series of beer commercials about the adventures of Jungle Dave slushing through an icebox in search of long necks, and they thought it was funny from Jungle Dave to call me Jungle Doug. Anyway, Gary Scott Thomas, Jungle Doug. Now, Cheryl was a sweet blonde hottie who was looking for love in all the wrong places. But then again, I was a once again single guy who was captivated by the idea that people wanted to date me because I'm on the radio. Like, yeah. I grew up a pretty geeky guy. I didn't get a whole lot of action. I'm thinking, this radio thing is pretty interesting. Anyway, Cheryl has a thing for voices, and she was drawn to mine. I mean, who wouldn't be? I say that she was my groupie, but she'll argue that point, like, no, it wasn't, but you were, okay. There's a phrase that we use at the time, I don't know if we use it as much anymore, but it's still true, as it pertains to advertisers. They say, radio gets results. Well, radio resulted in our relationship, and that developed into marriage. When we got serious about each other, we laid all the cards on the table. Hopefully you've been there. If you've been married, you have that time before, right? Where it's like, here's everything. You've gone far enough along, now it's time. If there's any deal breakers, put all the cards on the table. We told each other about everything. I guess I'm doing everything now. And while the church is quick to judge Christians with abortion in their past, we didn't judge each other. We understood and we supported one another through our healing, through our grief, and now using our stories to help others. I'm a firm believer that God puts us all through things not only for what He wants to teach each and every one of us, but then once we're on the other side and we have a story to tell, now we use that story to tell someone else. Even today, you might be listening to this story, you might be thinking about your own story. Maybe God's moving on your heart to tell your story to one or two or more. And now if we could do a little math for my fifth stone. So if I'm the first stone, and Cheryl's the fourth stone, 4 and 1 make 5, and that would be my son, who's got the video camera going, Garrett, baby man Griffin. Garrett was born in Tennessee. All of us were born in California. I was working for WayFM at the time. I didn't have my car out yet from California. I was given the WayFM Jambulance to drive as the vehicle. That's what they called it. It was purple and pink, right? This was 1998. So anyway, the water broke, and we were in apartments, Iroquois, Bellevue. So here we are, driving to Williamson Medical Center. Don't break the water in the station, baby. But Garrett was born, and it was awesome, and so we called him Baby Man. And it's so sweet when people come up and say, oh, I've listened to you since the WayFM days. I remember Baby Man. And ever since he could talk, I had him on the radio. I mean, that's good radio. So I'd call him every year on his birthday at least, all the way through his recent 18th birthday. He would co-host with me. Heck, he's even got his own Nelson Mazda commercial that's on the fish right now. So what about my son and my decision? So then I have to think, what kind of parent would I have been if this was my second child? What could I have done differently? What could he have learned from another sibling? Of course, we'll never know. Actions have consequences. But I can't live in the what if. I have to be here in the now. And I know now that Garrick is more aware than I ever was at his age about this issue, this choice, the gravity of it, the consequences from it, the regret, the remorse. I feel he's better equipped to handle a decision like this if it were ever to come up in his future. And hopefully he knows, no matter what choices he makes in life, that his mom and I are always going to love him. Because that's what a parent does. And that's something we all need to remember. Because our Daddy loves us. Our Heavenly Father is crazy about us. Do we let Him down sometimes? Yeah. We're not perfect. Do we break His heart? Yeah. Do we break His commandments? We do. But He knew that. He accounted for all of that in His plan. With His arms stretched open, His invitation is always there. Forgiveness is just a prayer away. Hold on to the truth of the Bible. Romans 8:1. Therefore, there is now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. And now, as I've talked about the stones, 5 of them in my life pond, I can now count myself as a stone in your pond. Each and every one of you. You've heard my story, and maybe you've even felt some of the ripples crisscross into the story of your own. And so I guess you have to ask yourself, what does God want to do about that? Is there a phone call that you need to make? Is there a relationship that needs mending? Do you need to ask someone for forgiveness? Do you need to ask Jesus for healing? Do you need to write a bigger check? I'll close with my wife's motto for her ministry. It sums it up. There is always hope. Thank you.